Look, there continue to be. Sorry, I just have my eyes tearing up. It's cold. It's cold out there.
That's why we're in here.
Yeah, you're smart.
Yeah.
The conversations continue to progress. They've been positive. I don't have anything to report at this time, but this is an extremely important issue. We're in a time of fiscal constraint. These aren't easy conversations, and by their nature are taking time and deliberation.
Can I ask you, there's a medical resident who's recently disciplined from the University of Ottawa for expressing pro-Palestinian views. There's been some other doctors and different professionals. We've spoken to employment lawyers, and they're seeing more of those sort of complaints that people say that their workplace is disciplining them because they express pro-Palestinian views, much more so than, say, pro-Israeli views. Do you think that there's an impact here on freedom of speech and expression? What do you think about, medical professionals being sanctioned for that type of personal viewpoint on a conflict happening in another country?
Well, we're deeply fortunate to live in a country where we have rule of law and where labor law is very clear, and where these matters can be adjudicated by the courts to make sure that people's freedom of expression is not impacted. It's absolutely essential in this country that people be able to speak their minds and their hearts, so long as it's not inciting hatred or inciting violence. Everybody has a right in this country to be able to freely express themselves, and we have a legal system that makes sure that is true. People are going to be availing themselves, I'm sure, of a legal process, and there's a lot of anecdotes that are coming. And it's important, and it's why we have courts to separate out what is and what is not true. And but the overall principle of making sure that everybody is free to express what's in their heart is absolutely critical in our democracy.
Thanks, Minister.
Okay, thanks so much.
Can I ask you a question? Recently, there was a doctor in residence who was suspended by the University of Ottawa for their pro-Palestinian views. It would seem that there's been quite a few sort of high-profile people being disciplined for pro-Palestinian views at work. Now, I guess we could argue over some more than others, but is there a concern about freedom of speech and freedom of expression, specifically for those who are expressing sympathies with Palestinians?
Well, I'm certainly concerned, and that's why I've had conversations with both NCCM and CJA with respect to, how we ensure that protests are safe and respectful of everybody. It's a challenging time, right? Emotions are high, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about what my role is in all of this, and collectively what our roles are as members of Parliament. And my role is to amplify the views of my constituents, but also everybody that I've been having conversations with over the last couple of months. And I think what we need is a safe place that is available for that discourse and that dialogue, so that people can express themselves, and that includes professionals.
How would you describe that place right now for professionals who want to express views on the Israel-Hamas war?
Difficult.
And do you find that there's I'm looking at this anecdotally, I suppose, but I think that there's at least, the Air Canada pilot, this doctor, there's been some other people within their professions who are being sanctioned, disciplined, or suspended for expressing pro-Palestinian views. Do you think that there is a level of a bias or unfairness that we can discern from that data?
I won't venture into that territory because I haven't looked into it, and I don't want to, wade into that kind of controversy. Really what it comes down to is, what is my place here in this very challenging time for everybody? Personally, I have Jewish and Palestinian family, and I found it, a little bit cathartic to be able to just sit down with them or chat or give them a call and recognize that while we can disagree on things, to quote Premier McGuinty, we ought to be able to disagree without being disagreeable.
Thank you. Can I ask you, do you think that there's a worry about the freedom of speech of people being infringed? There seems to be more, like latest was this doctor who was in residency at the University of Ottawa who was suspended or disciplined because of their pro-Palestinian views. Do you find this is happening more often with people who are having expressing pro-Palestinian views? Is there a concern freedom of speech is being infringed?
I'm not very well aware of that kind of debate, to be honest with you. Obviously, freedom of speech is very important in our democracy, but it's always, the line between what is right and what is wrong. There is some limit on that, but on that specific issue, I prefer not to get involved in. I know it's a very touchy one.
Okay.
My pleasure.
Thank you. There's recently a medical resident who was suspended for expressing pro-Palestinian views, and I have a colleague, Judy Tridman, in the story about, are we seeing more headlines about people who are suspended or disciplined by their workplaces for expressing pro-Palestinian views than pro-Israeli views? And is there a freedom of speech concern or anything like that? What do you feel about this? We've had the Air Canada pilot, this medical resident, a few other people have been disciplined or suspended. Employment lawyers are telling us they're seeing those sort of complaints coming from people expressing pro-Palestinian views. Is there a bias or freedom of speech or expression concern?
Well, I'm going to leave the question around the charter rights to lawyers, to which I am not one, and leave it to them at that. From my perspective, I think what's really important, of course, is that for us to see what's going on in the situation with Gaza, and to that end, what the NDP is calling for is a ceasefire. We need actually immediate action from the Canadian government with respect to that. I also think that we need to take action with the humanitarian situation that is required. So currently I'm working with a number of community groups who need to see the government to take action to bring in special immigration measures, particularly for those with for Canadians who have families in Gaza who are absolutely in a dire situation. So we need to actually address that issue as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Well, there's a story about this medical resident from the University of Ottawa who is disciplined, I think suspended because of their views on having pro-Palestinian views expressed on social media. There have been other instances where there's sort of been, one was, I think an Air Canada pilot and so on. There seems to be more instances where people are being disciplined from their workplaces because of expressing pro-Palestinian views. I can't go through each one case by case, but is there a concern here about the broader freedom of expression and freedom of speech here?
I'm not aware of these particular instances, but certainly think it's important that we have Canadians across the country who are able to vocalize their concerns. As I am here in the House of Commons, I think it's important for other folks to be able to be doing the same.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we just voted on the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Agreement, and I have to say I am absolutely gobsmacked that the entire caucus of the Conservative Party of Canada voted against it. This is an agreement that we have signed with the government of Ukraine. Let me remind you, a country that is currently under an illegal assault and an illegal war by Russia at this moment in time. This is an agreement that demonstrates Canada's solidarity, our commitment to Ukraine fighting for their freedom, for their sovereignty. This agreement is about supporting the rebuilding of Ukraine, and every single Conservative member of Parliament voted against it. I have to say I am in complete shock about this. I thought there was solidarity amongst Canadians. I believe, in fact, there is solidarity amongst Canadians, but Conservative members of Parliament have shown their true colours. It is clear to me why Mr. Poilievre has not uttered a single word in support of Ukraine. This demonstrates their lack of commitment to people who are fighting for their freedom and their sovereignty. I think Ukrainian Canadians should be concerned about this. They should be asking, what is going on with the Conservative Party of Canada? Why would they vote against something that the government of Ukraine has asked the government of Canada to do in a moment when they are under siege, when they are under threat, when they are fighting for their lives and fighting for their country? I assumed, I guess incorrectly, that this agreement would have passed quickly through the House of Commons. We saw that at every opportunity they obstructed debate. Now we know why. It's because they do not have that same solidarity with the Ukrainian people that Canadians have shown time and time again over the past year and a half, that we stand in solidarity with Ukraine. This is, I think, a blight on the Conservative Party of Canada. I think Conservative Party members need to ask themselves why they are standing against Ukraine, why they are, why they're doing what they're doing. I don't understand it. Mr. Poilievre purports to stand for freedom, but he clearly does not stand for freedom for people around the world. Thank you.